going.
Okay, resolve that little tech glitch. Hope you guys are doing well. So, Josiah, how's your weekend?
It was good. I've been doing some reading. I'm reading fiction and some tech philosophy and then some politics. So,
Oh, well-rounded reader. Well, I know you've got some questions lined up, and so we'll want to jump to that. Again, if you do support us on Patreon, question gets asked first. What's coming up so far? Anybody on the Discord server, or you got any questions from last week held over that we can dive right into?
oh, we got a lot of questions from last week, but I want to start with one. I thought of this week, and I thought it
Okay.
was kind of funny. So this is my pitch.
Okay.
I think I'm pitching this as a normal dating practice slash dating app thing. And I
Okay.
know a person who's starting a dating app, so maybe we should pitch this to them.
Yeah.
You should have to include a picture of your parents so that potential partners know how good of a long-term investment you
Oh
are.
wow! Ouch. Yeah, it's kind of like we bought a puppy and we wanted to see the breeder's page for the parents, even the grandparents. We saw that, and that was a big deciding factor on what you're getting yourself into. Obviously, pictures can only show so much just because you could have the most gorgeous looking set of parents or grandparents, but their marriage could be an absolute dumpster fire, or you could have a relatively unattractive set of grandparents who are well rounded, literally wrinkled up a little bit and happy as clams. And so the question is, yeah, like who's it? Fulton Sheen said the beauty on the outside never gets into the soul, but the beauty of the soul reflects itself upon the face. And so that could be an added bonus. One of the things I say when I do talks for college students is I kind of go through like a discernment things on a future spouse. And I say like this isn't a deal breaker, but if you can take a good look at the relationship of the parents of the person you're hoping to date. And, granted, if they came from a dysfunctional relationship, it doesn't mean that they're off the menu, that's not even someone worth discerning. Absolutely not. People can kind of break a legacy of divorce and messed up marriages. But if they've got parents who just have a solid, loving relationship, what that means is that the person you're thinking about dating has literally sat in a school of love for 18, 20, 25 years and gotten to see the real thing, good times, bad, sickness, and health. And that's like getting like a PhD degree in healthy relationships. Obviously, a lot of people watching this didn't get that advantage, and they're wondering like, how do I build a relationship that I never got to witness in the first place? I'd recommend the ministry of Joey Pontarelli. He runs something called Restored, and it's just essentially how to recover from your parents' failed marriage or their lack of a marriage, and how to basically build what you never got to see, so that you're not building one family on the ruins of the other. You can really learn the skills that maybe your parents lacked. But that's an interesting thought. Like, here's what I look like, and here's what I'm going to look like, 40, 50 years from now, if you want to invest in this long-term investment with me.
Ladies, just think about it. You can know if he's going to lose his hair early.
Actually, no, I think that the gene for hair loss comes from I think it's from isn't it from you'd get the man on his maternal grandparents' side. I think that's where it comes from in terms of what the hair loss is going to look like. So the question is, am I getting both sets of parents and grandparents? That might give you a better idea of where that hairline is going to be running to a couple decades from now.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a Google on it, but it doesn't. It's just all AI now, so it's impossible to tell because
Yeah.
I could just be making things up. It tells you to eat rocks if you Google the wrong thing now.
Oh,
So
interesting. Well, high in
yeah,
minerals. Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, all right. That's a fun question I thought of earlier this week. I was
There you
looking
go.
at pictures of my parents when they
And
were
there
alive.
is a new dating app coming out. Emily Wilson and her husband Daniel have created this thing called Sacred Spark. We'll put a link in the show notes. Apparently, it's like a revolutionary new way to approach Catholic dating. And once a diocese reaches a critical mass of people interested in it, then it gets launched in that diocese. And so you essentially have to click on the link we'll put in the show notes and then kind of vote for your diocese. Like, hey, Denver, Dallas, Nashville, whatever. And then once it hits a critical mass, it opens up and then it gets all those Catholic young adults together. So yeah, check that out. Sacred Spark is the name of it, but the specific link you want to click is right here in the show notes.
Awesome job, guys. Okay. This is a good question. And we can point to our pre-existing video on this. But what harm does a reading a smutty book cause? Is it different than porn?
No, it's not different than porn. People think, oh no, I'm just reading the words, so it's not bad because I'm not looking at the pictures. But you'll notice people looking at the pictures are saying, well, it's not that bad because I'm not looking at the videos. People look at the videos, say, well, it's not that bad because it's not live. It's not that bad even though it's live because I'm not actually going to a strip club. Well, yeah, I'm going to a strip club, but I'm not actually using a prostitute. Like, okay, whenever you're having to justify your actions, it means your conscience is already restless. And so we've got to listen to that. Now, in terms of, well, what's the big harm? I'm just reading this book. This predominantly is more an issue with females than males. Historically, men have preferred one word, Playboy with 1,000 pictures, whereas woman prefers one picture, Fabio or whatever, with 1,000 words. Now, why is that? Well, a lot of the romance novels, in fact, don't even have any smutty-looking, shirtless, long-haired guy riding a horse cover from the 1980s or whatever. They look very innocuous. They look very benign. It's like, oh, look, this is a nice little, romance or relationship novel. And then you get in there and it's just porn. It's pornifying the imagination. And the woman is falling in love with this idea of being the kind of the odd one out. That there's this, troubled guy who's just almost impossible to get, yet he chooses you. And, it's risky. There's adventure, there's pursuit, there's initiation, there's passion. So like all these deep aches that she has that are ultimately only to be satisfied by the God who pursues her with perfect love. We begin to idolize that and deform it into a sensualized relationship thinking, and we're escaping into this, so to speak. We're escaping into the story, not only the idea of the character living it out, but what would it be like myself to be that character, to be pursued and wanted and desired in that way. And while you're immersed in it, it's almost like the moment that the guy is immersed in visual pornography. Not only is he excited by what he's seeing, there's a deep desire there to be looked at with desire. And what I mean by that is the way that a woman would look at a man in a pornographic picture or video. He doesn't get to see that on his daily life or once a year, or once a lifetime. To have a woman of that caliber of extraordinary beauty desiring you and craving you and wanting you and you alone, and just for the moment you're being looked at like that, you feel valuable, you feel valued, you feel desired. And that's such a deep core need. Like, I want to be seen and desired in what they're seeing in me. And when we don't have that in our day-to-day life, and you just feel like a loser, or you just feel unattractive, or you're whatever, it's such a quick hit of dopamine to be like, well, I can just click on that, and just for the minute that I'm immersed in that video or that, content online, like I just feel so desired and masculine and alive. But then when it's all over, it's like, wow, like I feel like twice the loser. Like I just had to pay a woman to pretend like she's interested in me when deep down, she loathes me. I remember a friend of mine passed on some clip explaining how much women are making on these, online cam things. And one of the girls saying, like, I really want to date, but the problem is, she's making almost as much money as LeBron James is on these platforms. And she says, but I really want to date a guy who doesn't know who I am, and I can't find any. It's like she wants a guy to love her for more than her collection of body parts, but she's put herself out there as that to so many millions of men. She doesn't even know how to find one who looks at her with reverence. Now, how does this apply to the romance novels? Well, I think just as a man desires to be seen in that way, I think a woman desires to be seen in that way as well. And it isn't so much just merely visual, because a lot of guys will stare at women. They will. And if a woman has a low sense of self-worth, it'll feel, like a boost. Like, wow, he desires me. But if she's got any self-worth to herself, she'll realize it isn't me that he desires. It's the pleasure that he's using me for in his imagination or in his hopes in his body. And so it's not me that he desires, but the pleasure he wants to get at my expense. And so it's not simply to be stared at that a woman desires. It's not simply to see body parts, because, pornography online for women is catching up to that of guys, but it's still nowhere close. What it is this narrative of being the one who's desired and swept off her feet and pursued and chased after with clarity. And there's a mystery there, but in the end, you win this trouble guy and you save him from himself and you live happily ever after. And that deep romance that's at the heart of every woman just ends up getting pornified by these novels with all the sensuality. And I believe, the most important sexual organ in the body isn't the reproductive organs. It's not the eyes. It's the mind. And so when we're taking in these images through our eyes, and the faculty of your imagination brings these things to life, that guy can become whoever you want him to be, however you want him to look, however he wants to pursue you, like, and you build this fantasy image, then the book's over and it's closed and it's like, okay, wow, that was all fake. Nobody wants me that way. There's no man like that in my life pursuing me. When do I start the next book? And so it's just going to create this restless craving. I think it was Thomas Aquinas said that the person who is deprived of spiritual delights will always turn to carnal pleasures. And so if we don't have the delight of God in our life, a God who loves us, pursues us, and desires us, we tend to go binge on the counterfeit. We tend to eat, so to speak, out of the dumpster when he's made something so much better for us. And so if you're looking at these videos, don't justify it. If you're reading these books, don't justify it. It's not like I'm actually doing it. No. Get rid of the junk. Replace it with the real sacred romance. Replace it with holy reading. Replace it with actual community. They say the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's human connection. And so what you're aching for is real human connection. And these books actually get you further from that. Even if you're involved in some online community of people who love the same books, it's not a real community. It's not people who actually know how your day-to-day life is. And so you'll seek out these things in isolation. But when it's all said and done, you know it's not you. You know it's not what you ultimately crave. It's tapping into such a legitimate good ache, but satisfying it in a way that's going to leave you dissatisfied. And so go back, check out that previous show. Maybe we can put a link up here on the screen. You can click that and watch that. Yeah, so that's a much fuller explanation than we just gave in 5 minutes. But yeah, don't justify that stuff. Just because it's on the written page, it's not an image, doesn't mean that it's not degrading the gift of sexuality or your sexuality or even degrading you in the process.
Hello. The
Hello?
person I am dating has social quirks. The way they walk, laugh, dress, mannerisms, etc. I don't find these quirks attractive. And though it shouldn't bother me, I can't help thinking about how other people would view the person. I shouldn't want to change the person I'm with. This makes me think they're not the right one with me, but we get along very well in other ways. Share the same views, values, we connect, etc. Are the social quirks something I should learn to tolerate or a sign I should move on?
Good question. I would try to apply to yourself like the 10-year rule, meaning 10 years from now, let's say that this person does not increase in their social graces at all. Maybe you're a real extrovert and they're a little bit more introverted and they never want to go out and you always want to go out, or you get around with friends and you leave feeling, oh, that was a really awkward exchange because they just don't seem to pick up on social cues and we're endlessly in these awkward situations. You know, is this going to be a deal breaker 10 years from now? Is it just going to get so under your skin that you're just going to be like, this just drives me nuts? Or realizing, you know what, there's so many other awesome qualities about this human being. And, you know, maybe they happen to be a really good listener and you could constructively point out ways that they could refine their social skills with a little bit of practice and experience and listening. Maybe they're totally unaware of it and maybe they are aware of it, just have no interest in changing. I don't know. But if they have what's called that tractability, that teachability, that they're open to improving their personality. I mean, who out there would not want to learn to interact socially in a more pleasing manner to others, to actually learn that skill of being a gentleman or a lady, or just listening well to others, or not saying inappropriate things at the wrong time that make everybody around you feel super awkward. Hopefully most people would want to learn that. And if this person has the ability and interest to work on those things, I'd say awesome. If they're just like, nope, I'm the way I am, then you have to decide. St. John Paul II, when he would go on these hikes with young people, would hear out their questions, give his input, and then always end with, but you must choose. And so you've got to decide, would you be at peace 10 years from now? Let's say if nobody better came along, maybe someone that had lots of the social graces, but didn't share your faith, didn't share your morals, that you didn't really click with. Would you be kicking yourself in the pants thinking like, man, I had that person that was really a keeper and I just ditched them just because this little piece was off. And so you've got to really take into consideration, is this a deal breaker kind of thing? And for some people it would be. And you don't want to kind of hang on to a relationship that you're going to be perpetually dissatisfied by, because maybe the qualities that irritate you about that person would be qualities that another person finds attractive. I think it's really funny how quirky they are. And I'm kind of the same way. And we're like two peas in a pod. And so you just don't want to kind of latch onto a relationship that you know deep down, I'm not going to be happy with this long term. So, there's no clear, in my opinion, black or white, yes or no answer to this. You're the one who has to decide whether this thing's a deal breaker if it never changes, but plan, just to be safe, that it's never going to change, because typically things don't. They say after marriage, women get upset that their husbands don't change and men get upset that their wives do change. Now, not always the case, but I would encourage you to bank on this not changing and then base your decision off of that.
Awesome. Very good. Why do you think that nuns are often portrayed as evil in horror movies? As the stereotypical villain in horror movies, I guess, is the question.
Oh yeah, I mean for the same reason that Satanists will only steal the Blessed Sacrament from a Catholic church. They'll never go into a Protestant church and take some bread out of the cabinet in the back of the Lutheran church or whatever and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to use this in a black mass," because it's a piece of bread. Like you could get that at the grocery store. Like what sacrilege is there in debasing something that's only a symbol? But if you can get the real thing, and if you can commit sacrilege against that which is holy, the Blessed Sacrament, now you're legitimately, truly, deeply offending God and committing a heinous mortal sin. And so when it comes to what is Hollywood going to degrade, what's the devil going to smear, he's just going to take what's most sacred and just desecrate that. And so the gift of human sexuality, he's going to point all his guns against that, because, man, when human sexuality is lived out according to God's plan, it becomes like a mirror into the Trinitarian life-giving love of God. And if husbands and wife love each other as they should be, it's like it's a visible sign of the invisible love of God. The way that Christ, the bridegroom, loves his bride. It's a living image of the Song of Songs. Like, it's one of the greatest forms of evangelization, not to say anything, just to be what you're supposed to be as husband and wife. And so if that's the power of the sign, then the devil's going to do everything he can to possibly obscure that. And so if Satan at his core hates Jesus Christ, who is he going to go after if God is omnipotent, and he obviously can't defeat that, and he'll smear that, through black masses and things of that nature. But who is he going to go after next? The bride of Christ. Not only the church, but literally the consecrated brides who've given their life to become one with Christ through religious life. And so what's going to happen in Hollywood is they'll take what is most holy, whether it's the marital act, the religious life, sisters, and say, let's contort this as much as possible into what is evil. Because you know as well as I do, when you meet awesome nuns, whether it's a Sister of Life, the Dominican Sisters of Ann Arbor, or Nashville, SOLT Sisters, I mean, you name it. There's so many awesome religious orders, and you meet them. As a man, you just sit up straighter. Like, you just want to be a better human being when you're in the presence of these extraordinary women, these missionaries of charity. Like, you want to just be a better human being because how much they've given themselves to God. And so that's why the devil's going to want to take what is so good and so pure and so holy and just bring that to the opposite spectrum. Like, how horrific would it be for the holiest thing to be evil? That's why they're going after it, precisely because it is so good. Same thing with Black Mass, same thing with the gift of human sexuality. Same thing with religious life. And unfortunately, same thing with the priesthood. I mean, when was the last time Hollywood actually put out a movie where the priest was what a priest should be? It's almost like, how often do you see on sitcom television a husband and father who's not a buffoon and an idiot and a Homer Simpson? It's like Hollywood can't bear to show the real thing because it's just kind of living on a completely different dimension.
Awesome. Sorry, these are all really long. I'm trying to
Okay, that's fine.
Summarizable.
Yep. So while he's looking that up and summarizing some good questions, again, if you email your question live@chastity.com, we'll get that and go through it. You could type it into the Discord server, or you can literally just call in and talk right now if you want for the remainder of the show, if you got any questions that way. So there's 3 different forms there to submit your questions if you got any. And then also, like I had mentioned, patreon.com. Those always get bumped up to the top of the list.
Okay. Sorry. I found one.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you're going to know anything about this, but I'll
probably won't.
Because if you do, we'll be fine. I'm a big fan of your work. I really appreciate the valuable insight you provide. I've been having a problem with my daughter recently. I was wondering if you could help me come to a decision on. She is been expressing interest in a type of toy that is concerning to me and my wife. She's talking about a thing called a labubu. It's a small, fluffy looking keychain figure with a weird, creepy looking toothy smile and disturbing eyes. And she says that it's a popular toy right now. And I've just been getting feeling that it feels unholy or would like to go or would go against the values that I've been trying to teach her. And I feel like it looks like some kind of satanic symbol. I've offered her to get her toys that align with better with our values and are more appropriate to her, but she seems very insistent on wanting this doll. I
Yeah,
don't know how to bring up this topic. Yeah, okay, you get the idea.
yeah,
Let me
yeah.
look up the picture of the thing, and you talk about general. While you
Yeah,
talk about the
you
general
look up
picture,
a
I'll,
Labubu.
I'll
I
pull
don't
up
have
a
a
picture for you.
clue what that is, but what I do know is that a lot of the toy makers are out there are just crafting like really just evil looking toys. I mean, they're creepy. Whether it's the Bratz dolls and things like that, where it's excessively anorexic and immodest, but they don't even stop there. I mean, the problem with Barbie used to be like her dimensions were just so disproportionate that if what she was a real woman, literally wouldn't even be able to stand on her own 2 feet because the size of her legs and her waist and her hips and her breasts, like everything is so disproportional. But it's like, yeah, that's not enough. Let's take the Bratz doll, let's make her more anorexic, and then it's like, okay, that's not bad enough. Let's make it look like she's dead. Let's like make it look like she's like literally a zombie with purple skin and like a skull face. And it's like, okay, how contorted could you possibly make a little child's toy to normalize this degradation of the human form? And so with okay, so we've got pictures up here. Yeah, it looks like where the wild things are kind of looking
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So
I think there's part of me that doesn't like. I understand why parents are scared of them, but there is part of me that literally sees where the wild things are in it, and that was a big book in my childhood. So I'm just
no,
like,
it wasn't mine, so like I liked that book, and for me it was, there's something exciting and adventurous about that. I don't know if there's other ones that don't look quite like that, but I mean, what
no,
I
they
would
all look like that. They're all the same. Like,
what's that one that's got a little black eye or something like that? A little too much mascara on that doll. What is a labubu? I would say as your parent, to always trust your gut on this stuff, because I know sometimes the kids have gotten toys and whether gifts from whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sit right with me. That's kind of weird and creepy, and it just disappeared. Where is it? I don't know where that thing went. It's like 4 feet deep in the trash can. Just go with your gut. I'm always going to tell parents, just go with your gut on this one. And what you could maybe do is redirect. So instead of this, we're going to get you that one instead. Obviously there's places where we have to have compromise when it comes to our kids. But if your sense is like, no, this is really kind of a wicked looking thing. It looks like a baby that would bite me and give me rabies. Like I don't really think I want to pass that on to my kid, because is this like a gateway drug into some weird anime type toys that they're going to want next, and then that's going to lead to whatever. So you just trust your gut, and if you get a feeling of just like something's off, like if you were crafting a toy, it's going to be an expression of your heart. It's going to be an expression of you. Any type of art that you produce, any type of carpentry that you build, it's like an extension of you. That's what art is. And so when we're creating a toy, what would be the motive behind, like, let's give this little fluffy baby jagged teeth and wicked little eyes and then put it in the hands of children? It's like, who's coming up with that stuff? And so I don't know. I would say treat her to something else and she'll get over it. It's not like this phase, I think, would hopefully last too long anyway. So yeah, I would say stick to your guns on that way and pass on a little Labubu and, I don't know, buy him a dog or something instead.
yeah. Sorry, they're popular right now. I get to put one in a thumbnail now. So,
Yeah.
um, I have a brother who is an uncle to my very small child. He is civilly married to another man. I also have a brother-in-law, another uncle who presents as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
We are struggling with how to love them. This is a separate question from last time. I know we had a similar question recently. So we are struggling with how to love them while maintaining boundaries and our own beliefs. So my questions are, um, we know we can't control what exactly to tell them in regard to boundaries in our home. We know we can't control them when we're out in public places, but in our home we don't want displays of affections. What kind of boundaries would you ask them, and what can you reasonably expect? What would you suggest in regards to family gatherings, birthday parties, baptisms, etc.? Can we continue to invite them? What about their uncle presenting as a woman?
Yeah.
Can he be invited to gathering?
Yeah.
Um, finally, do you maintain interest in the person? How do you maintain interest in a person and not devalue them to their gender identity or preference? As an example, at big family gatherings, we struggle to talk to them and maintain an interest in their lives because their beliefs or activities all seem to contradict ours. My brother is my brother's partner is involved in cross-dressing, streams every weekend, and they go out to gay bars. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
There's more, but you got it.
Yeah. First, I'll just begin with your relationship with both of these individuals. Perplex them with your love. Seek them out at these family gatherings. Enter into conversations, not for the sake of debating or just winning an argument, because I don't think that's going to really change their lifestyle overnight. I mean, if it comes up, you can, express what you feel, but you want to overcome this idea that they have that Christians hate them, Catholics hate them. They're a bunch of transphobic, homophobic bigots that just want them and think they're just going to burn in hell. That's really what they believe. And so you want to throw a wrench in that entire narrative of seeking them out, of affectionately giving them a big hug when you see them and spending time with them. Hey, you want to go to the movie? You want to go sit on the porch and have a beer? Like, just seek them out. Now, that doesn't mean that you necessarily bring your child along in these conversations, because your primary responsibility is the innocence of your and the sanctification and the salvation of your own child. And you have a duty to not introduce subjects into their world that it's not age appropriate for them to have to wrestle with. And so you want to, if the people are coming over to your house, you want to clearly communicate your boundaries. Like, look, I love you very much and I want you to be a part of my life. But I also have a responsibility for my child that I don't really want to get into conversations with my child at the development level that he is about these complex issues of morality and what the church teaches and this and that. I'd rather just kind of not be on his radar right now until a little bit later in life. And if you can respect that, love to have you all over. I'd love to spend time with you. But if that's not something you feel comfortable with, I totally respect that. So you want to put the ball in their court where you're welcoming them with boundaries and then seeing if they respect them, instead of leaving them with the sense of just like, you are just completely shunned from my existence. And so I would try to seek out these individuals, because lots of people watching, myself, have extended families members that have the same things going on in their life. And it gets puzzling of like, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road of like, yeah, I know theologically this and that, but like pastorally, what do we do with these daily exchanges? And so I would try to treat them as humanly as possible, because the world will typically try to get them to sexualize their identity as much as the world is trying to get them to sexualize our products and everything else. Like, you are this. And if every conversation we have with them is all about that, it just reinforces this notion that that's who they are. But that's not their identity. Their identity is not LGBT or any more than my identity is S, straight. Like, that's not who I am. Like, if I'm a book that's on page 57, it's not the cover story. And so we need to reclaim the identity piece of the human person. And one way we do that is by engaging with them in such a manner that doesn't place that front and foremost. Like, this is the big issue of who you are. It's like, no. Their attractions are something they experience, but it most certainly is not their identity. Because if they think that their attractions, their identity, then their attractions literally become their origin, their identity, and their destiny. Think of that. Like, this becomes who they are. And so don't participate in that narrative that this is who they are. It's part of, their story, and, their experiences are real, and we're not trying to erase them. What we're trying to do is to keep them from being erased by taking something that's their identity, a son of God, a daughter of God, and letting that get erased by a transgender, same-sex, type of ideology that's who they are. So yeah, so you got to take the prudent measure of keeping your kid out of the fray when it's bringing up issues that, may be difficult. When you're coming to a family reunion, you're not as much in control of the dynamics of that as you are if it were under your own roof and, he's just coming over. It's a very different thing than like, no, we're all going to this mutual spot. There's going to be 50 people there, and I can't really tell them how to behave while they're at that reunion. And so if that's the case and you suspect that there's going to be a lot of PDA going on or whatever, then maybe the younger kiddos stay home. If you've got some older kids, bring them and tell the kid, this is our agenda. We want to treat this relative with love in hopes that maybe one day they're going to realize, hey, Christians don't hate me. Maybe God doesn't hate me either. Maybe Jesus actually loves me. Maybe I should be open to what he thinks of my life as well. And so that's not a sprint. It's not an argument you win. It's a relationship you build, and then hopefully their hearts will be open to Christ. So that's the approach that I would recommend taking.
Can I add some?
Absolutely.
I was reading today this essay. I mean, the best way to describe it is just an essay arguing that the fundamental operation of politics is friendship. But one of the quotes, it came to mind when I heard you talking, one of the quotes that the author uses, Dr. Andrew Willard-Jones, is St. Thomas's commentary on Matthew 5:44, love your enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote is, hence your adversary is to be loved in what he shares with you and appears among, and as also appears among all natural things. For white is opposed to black as it is unalike, and black is not a color. Hence, we should destroy hatred, i.e. the fact that he is an enemy should displease us, and we should destroy the enmity in him. So this is just kind of like a great, I had thought of that just because it came to me that's kind of, and the author, he goes on and explains it, but it's like you have to think of friendship and your relation and your commonality as the fundamental aspect of all your human relationships, and you're trying to like loving the sinner and hating the sin is fundamentally an operation of destroying what makes you opposed to one another.
No, it's very. I remember Abraham Lincoln once saying, "I don't like that person very much. I'll need to get to know him better." And so that was his approach to it. Instead of just shunning him, I don't like him, you're out of here. And like, I'll need to get to know that person better because I don't feel like I like them very much. And so, yeah, just the importance of like, this person isn't our enemy because the attractions that they experience. No, I think people right now look at individuals who identify as trans or whatever as kind of like, nope, that person is just so far out the left field. They are this culture warrior trying to essentially, reconstruct gender norms, and they're just destroying this culture of life. And, look, most of these people are not culture warriors. They're casualties of the culture war. And so what's needed now more than ever isn't necessarily church militant, but in a sense, church medic, meaning we need to go into the battlefields, not for the sake of dropping bombs left and right, but for treating and giving triage to people who are on the brink of physical or spiritual death, of actually going out there with the mindset of a Hacksaw Ridge kind of thing. Like, we're going out there to save lives instead of just shooting, our arguments and just winning those verbal battles. And this isn't to say that we shouldn't debate. We certainly should. But I think we need to have a predisposition of focusing, as you said, Josiah, more on the friendship than anything else.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. I'm going to boil this one down because there's some personal details. I don't want to put this guy on blast. How much should physical attraction factor into discernment for marriage?
Well, I think it needs to be there. I think you need to be attracted to your spouse. And some people will say, hey, we live in this part of the world where marriages are arranged and we actually have more lasting marriages than you guys do over there in America. I think there could be some truth to that in the fact that they're choosing based on like, your family is like our family. We have the same goals and we think you would be a good partner for that person. And, there's a coldness to it, almost like a business arrangement, that it just doesn't feel very Hollywood and romantic. It's more just this exchange of goods and services. And so that we kind of hold back to that from that. Whereas in the Western culture, it tends to be over emotional and over romanticized and over focused on physical. And obviously, any relationship built on that foundation is going to implode anyway. And so I think we need to find some healthy middle ground, not where our parents are telling us who to marry, but we're tapping into family wisdom of like, yeah, I'm really into this girl and I'm just so attracted to her. Whereas the family might, like we agreed, like she's really pretty, but, does she have a maternal bone in her entire body? Like, does she want to be a mother? Would she make a good wife? Is she a woman of prayer? Does she have virtue? Is she this? Like they sometimes can just see stuff we can't because we can get so blinded by beauty. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, some people might say like, look, this person has all the qualities I want, but I'm really not attracted to them. sometimes that changes in time. I had mentioned before how I knew of a woman, this guy asked her out, and she said, no, I just see you as a friend. And he's like, okay, it kind of stung, but he accepted and appreciated the fact that she was clear about that. A year passed and they spent more time together, and he decided to shoot his shot again. And again, she politely turned him down and said that she just sees him as a friend. Okay, and he just focused on the friendship and lived his life. And then a year later, kind of circled back and they'd gotten to know each other even better. And then again, he asked her on a date and she's like, yeah, let's go. Not because she was desperate, but because over time she did begin to find him more attractive. And they ended up going on a date. And she fell totally in love with him in time, and they got married and have a super happy marriage. Now, was it the guy number one that she was expecting? Like, I have all these expectations of what I want him to look like, and this guy fits it. But no, like, she really fell in love with him as a human person. And how much better is that than someone who has love at first sight, but it's really what the person looks like? Because you can't really will the good of another and know all their virtues and vices at first sight. No, it's just an instant attraction is what that is. And it's much better that you become attracted to the person over time than attracted to what they look like, and then over time discover you're not actually attracted to the human being themselves, because that's going to stay put. Looks are going to come and go. The person stays who the person is. And so you've got to really weigh, am I focusing too much on the physical? And some people are made to feel guilty if, like, no, I don't find this person physically attractive at all. Well, there's probably someone out there who does, and I think they deserve to be with that person. I mean, I would want to be with the person who finds me attractive, just as, I find my wife attractive. To me, that's just a part of marriage, and it's healthy, and we shouldn't feel guilty about desiring that, or you're superficial because you just want a woman you're attracted to. It's like, no, that's healthy. That's normal. And so I think those who are seeking a spouse would do well to make yourself attractive in the way that you dress, in your social interactions, in the fact that you're in shape, you're healthy. You don't need to be anorexic. You don't need to be Mr. Universe, but be healthy. Hit the gym. Like, as a man, I think you should be physically capable of defending your wife. I mean, right now in Arizona, it's the rut, meaning all the elk are out there bugling in the woods and trying to find a girlfriend and all that. And they're all smashing their antlers together. It's a really amazing thing to go watch. And they've got these incredible antlers, 5 feet long with all these tines. They're smashing into each other because the big guy wins. The big guy's like, no, I win because I need to pass on my genes for the well-being of this species so that whoever the strongest one in gets to reproduce with the cows. And then that passes on the strongest genes. And, from an evolutionary biology perspective, it's best for everybody. And whether we realize it or not, it's at play in the human person, where when a woman looks, she wants to find a man that's a protector and a provider. Can this man secure resources for me when I become pregnant? And even if a woman says, well, no, I don't want to have kids, I just want to be an independent woman, I think deep down she's still looking for this. Like, will a man protect and provide for me? If we're walking through a parking garage late at night, do I feel secure with my arm wrapped around his? Or do I feel like I'm going to have to ward off the bullies if they come to us in this dark alley? So I think a guy should be working out if he wants to find a spouse. If you want to learn some jujitsu on the way, go for that. Like, learn these skills. It will make you more attractive to the opposite sex, but obviously don't stop there. Become attractive as a human person, grow in virtues, grow intellectually, read intellectually stimulating books, develop hobbies, like become an interesting human being all around. So that way you're not just focusing so much on the physical. I'm eating my creatine and my drinks, and I'm hitting the gym 5 times a week and taking testosterone booster. Yeah, but like, dude, you can't hold a conversation for 30 seconds without making her fall asleep. Like, try to become attractive as a human being across the board. And I think you're going to immediately up your chances of finding a person and beginning your vocation with them. And so take that stuff seriously. Becoming intellectually attractive, spiritually attractive, physically attractive, emotionally, socially, work on this stuff. All of it you can work on. And don't overwhelm and become super scrupulous if you're not Miss America. There's only one most beautiful woman in the world. There's only one most handsome man in the world. I'm not him. I'm fine with that. It's like, it's not a contest to like see who can stand on top of the whole pile. I'm just going to try to become the best human being I can be, a person that I would respect if I were someone else, and just live as God wants me to live. Do that stuff. Be at peace, and don't feel guilty if you're wanting to end up with someone who you actually find physically attractive.
I have a follow-up.
Go for it.
What are some, so we all know the, like, everyone, whether or not they admit it, knows the things they can do to become more physically attractive.
Mhm.
Okay. What are the things that we need to be doing as men to be more socially attractive to women, and what are the things women can be doing to be more socially attractive to men?
I think for men, ways you could be more attractive to women, and I'm not one of these. My guess is intelligence, humor, and being a good listener. Like, try that stuff. Like, if a woman senses a man's humorous, it typically is a signal of intelligence because he's able to play on words and see themes and just the way he views life. It's a kind of an indicator of intelligence, which for the woman psychologically, subconsciously is an indication that he would be a good provider. Now, granted, you can't just become funny. I'm not going to go read a bunch of joke books or whatever. But, to be lighthearted, I think women are looking for a man of humor. It makes her life enjoyable because life can be kind of serious and heavy. And a guy who knows the right time to bring levity to a situation is a good thing. So, and then intellectually, like, read some books, like, take the time that you're spending, whether it's in the gym or in your commute to work, and just learn audiobooks, whether it's I want to learn wildlife photography, or I want to learn business, or I want to learn about the Civil War, like whatever it is, like just grow your intellectual base so you could talk about different things. I remember St. John Paul II, someone who knew him well, told me that, like, he was probably intellectually the most well-rounded person on earth. They said you could literally start a conversation with him about anything, and he could talk about it with you for like a half hour in a deep level of knowledge, whether it's an F-16 fighter jet or marine biology or the economic systems in the Middle East. Like, it was insane just because he was constantly having lunches with people who are experts in their particular fields of engineering or psychology or medicine or whatever. And he would sit and learn from these people, and he was just an absolute sponge. And so I would say, grow in an intellectual basis. Socially, if you feel a little bit awkward, lean into that in the sense of, like, I don't want to be around big crowds of people. Okay, go into big crowds of people. If you're like, well, I feel nervous around women. Okay, go talk to twice as many women then. And talk to women, not necessarily who are the ones that you want to ask out, but talk to women who you don't want to ask out. Not to play games with them or lead them on, but just be like, okay, there isn't a lot of pressure in this conversation. If it doesn't go well, I don't need to be like emotionally devastated. My self-esteem is shot because that pretty woman just found me boring. Just start talking to them as friends. Get out of your comfort zone. It's not a place you need to live in or be. Work on that stuff. So yeah, I would say sense of humor, intelligence, that you're a good listener, you have a degree of empathy. I think if a guy's got that stuff, he becomes more attractive. Like, when we think I want to be attracted to my spouse, we always go physical. But like, no, like, I remember being in college and meeting girls that, physically I wasn't as totally attracted to as another, but like, her personality was so awesome. It's so fun to be around a human being like that. And it just makes them more attractive. And so let's look at attraction from a full human lens instead of simply the physical. And so that's what I think a guy can do to be more attractive: get intelligent, get smart, be a good listener. You want to throw anything else in there before I move to women, Josiah?
I want to say just like a piece of practical advice, because I saw this on social media recently. Somebody said, is there a gym for training my attention span? And somebody just replied, it's called a library. But that kind of peaked in my mind. Like, we all know, like, we know this as Catholics, especially because we have Thomas, who's baptized Aristotle and the virtue ethics for us. But anytime you're trying to grow in anything, like a gym-like mindset where you do the hardest version of what you're trying to get better at, you can do right now.
Yeah.
Right. So like, if your attention span is really slow, like, turn off your phone and read for as long as you can right now. If you have a hard time talking to people, go talk to people, as many people as you can, for as long as you can right now. It's not like you have to get to a normal level on your first attempt. It's training like you train in the gym. So
Yeah, and you can't out-train a bad diet. That's one of the things that one of the CrossFit athletes I know of had always said, that like for years he was training, but his diet was not like a 5-star what it should be for a premium level athlete. And once he changed that, his game went to the whole next level. And so if a library is the place that you go to improve, if it's the gym for your attention span, so if the library is the gym for the attention span, then social media is an absolute tub of lard that you're eating out of. Meaning you need to shut the stupid thing off. There's a great video that came out from that Harvard professor who talks a lot about living a happy life and boredom. What's that guy? Do you remember that guy's name? He's probably
I
his
know what
late
you're
50s,
talking about,
early
and I'm literally
60s. Oh, I'm
trying to
just
think of it
blanking
because I
out on
want to put
the.
it in the description.
Yeah, I know the guy's name. It's just blanking me for some reason. Go find the video that he just put out about 2-3 weeks ago on how important it is to be bored. And so if you just click, Harvard professor bored, YouTube, it'll come up with this 5-minute video, and it's so well done. It's got like millions of
Is
views in
it
the last couple weeks.
Arthur Brooks?
Arthur Brooks, there you go. That's it. So go
Okay.
Arthur Brooks, like why it's important to be bored. Watch that. It's so good. He talks about the phone has basically removed our ability to be bored. Meaning when you get to the crosswalk and you got to cross, or you get to a stoplight, it's the phone. It's input, 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 input. Yeah. The place that's activated in your brain when you stop and there's nothing to do, we don't want to go there. Like we don't want to go to that spot of asking life's meaningful questions, of pondering, of that place of creativity. But he said, no, next time you work out, don't bring the phone. It'll be the most productive workout imaginable in terms of intellectually. Likewise, get rid of that. Put your stupid phone in a cabinet. Only use social media when it's extremely intentional, meaning I'm going to spend 5 minutes posting this or that. Otherwise, you can just the AI algorithm that's behind that is trained to capture your brain and feed it these short little bursts of dopamine that you didn't earn. It's all this unearned dopamine, and then when it's over, you just crash and you're just like, I need a hit, I need a hit, I need a hit. I've talked to so many people just in the last couple of weeks, teachers, youth ministers, they're like, I can't believe the attention span of the kids over the last 3, 4, 5 years since COVID. Like it's gone. Like they're like in the classroom, I can't keep their attention for 5 minutes. They're so fidgety. They've literally fried the part of their brain that is their attention span. And so I would say, yeah, just as a library as the gym, and get your face out of that tub of lard, which is just all this fat of your attention span, which is the phone, which is social media. It'll bother you when you put it away, how much you reach for it in its absence of just like, okay, I'm not doing something right now. I would normally do my phone, but it's physically not on me. I feel agitated. Okay, I need to enter into that agitation and I need to become at peace with it. And I need to learn, okay, what am I going to do now that I'm bored? Oh, I'm going to think about that goal I had. I'm going to ask some meaningful questions in life. Go to that place. And so grow your intellectual attention span by shutting down the phone, reading some decent books. Should we pivot now to the girls be more attractive?
I think that's a good idea, just like socially stuff. Because like I said, everybody, both genders, whether or not they admit it, everybody knows we'll keep to be more physically attractive.
Yeah.
So socially, what do you think?
Yeah, so socially attractive. I've heard it said that women tend to bond kind of face to face. We're sitting at a coffee restaurant talking. Men tend to bond kind of shoulder to shoulder. We're hiking through the woods or doing whatever. And so what I think a woman can glean from that is be willing to bond with the man in the way that he bonds. If it's activity, like let's go do this thing together. Let's go do that activity together. Guys really feel connected. At least I do. When a woman I care about is wanting to do something with me that's physically, engaging. We're going on a hike. We're going to go do this thing. We're going to go do that thing. I don't know. I just feel so much closer to her that even if it's not something that I'm great at or she's great at, we're learning together. And so go do stuff with the guy. Be willing to get out of your comfort zone in that regard in terms of social activities and doing physical stuff. To me, that's a big one for the women. I think guys would also like to find a girl who has control of her emotions, that she's not living a roller coaster emotional soap opera. And yeah, life has its ups and downs, absolutely. But do you have mastery over your emotions? Is it just constantly just this massive highs and massive lows? Do you have a level of mastery there that you've worked on, of emotional maturity? I think guys find that attractive. That she's fun, that she can hold a conversation, that she's a prayerful woman, that she's a person of virtue. If she's got a sense of humor, awesome bonus points. It just makes you enjoy their company and want to be in their company longer. And so, yeah, for a woman who may be thinking, but look, I'm not Miss Universe. Yeah, physically what stuff you can do, but I mean, there's a threshold how physically attractive I could be. I mean, can I go tan or can I go take this supplement or whatever? I mean, there's a ceiling as to, I'm not going to be Mr. Universe, Brad Pitt, whatever. George Clooney, like, okay, I can live with that. But I'm just going to stay healthy. I'm going to stay in shape. But then there's all this other stuff that there really is no ceiling in terms of how attractive you can become as a human person. So I'd say work on that stuff. Josiah, any other thoughts that you would say for single women?
hobby one. You were talking
Yeah.
about doing things with people, but I want to add another layer to that. That like, I'm not saying like you need to have like a hobby that you're doing every day, but
Yeah.
like some interests besides I go out with my friends,
Yeah.
because let's just be really honest and frank about this. Men and women are different enough that you going out with your friends and that like being a social life, as important that is not going to interest a guy, and that's not wrong of him.
Yeah. Yeah. You just
Um,
become more interesting when you have an interesting life, that you have hobbies that
yeah,
they could enter into instead of it's all you're just going doing with the guy. Yeah. Like get a hobby, learn an instrument, find something that invigorates you as a human being that you can strive for perfection and excellence in. To me, it's as exciting. Like I remember when I was in college, I dated one young woman and she was a mezzo soprano singer. And it was just cool to go to the concerts and just hear all the work that she had put into that particular talent. My son is, dating a young girl who's a collegiate athlete right now, and how much he enjoys being able to go to the games and root for her and cheer for her. And so I think it's just super important that we have hobbies, that we have interests, and it doesn't have to be the same as yours are. Just pursue that, and I think that'll make you a more attractive person as well.
and one I want to add, try to not be super school marmy. And I don't mean like be okay with your boyfriend or a potential guy being like crass or whatever, but like be okay with him being a guy,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
male bonding involves more. Look, we're mean to each other as a form of affection a lot. Let's just, like, or like and we do more weird things, and we have like weird stuff that we do, and it's really unattractive to guys when you make it a point to say that you don't approve of the way that they bond with their male friends.
oh
So
yeah.
just try to avoid that.
Yeah, the other day we were in our bedroom. We got this big king size bed, and our three little boys came in and just started this full on WWE Nacho Libre throwdown jiu-jitsu wrestling match on there. Our 5-year-old, 8-year-old, and 10-year-old were just going at it. And Crystal and I were just sitting there trying to have a rational discussion about something. And the kids are screaming and jumping off the headboard, tackling. And Crystal's like, stop. You guys need to stop. And I'm like, no, Crystal, just trust me. Let them be feral. Let them do this thing. It is so good for their intellectual stimulation, for their bonding, and for their capacity to fall asleep, an hour from now. Just let them go at it. And the kids literally just went at it, and there were tears, they were crying. And 3 minutes, seconds later, they're back at it and fighting. And by the time they were done, they're all like, red and puffy and panting and sweating, and their hair's all messed up, but Crystal's like, that was crazy. And at one point she's like, I can't take this anymore. I just need to get up and go do a different movie. Like, this is insane. And I just sat there and watched it. It was just hilarious to watch. And they don't need to bond the same way that females bond. And that's good. And so as long as your guy is with guys who bring out the best in him, let him have at it. Obviously, if he's with a circle of guys who are living a life of absolute vice, pay real close attention to that, because, show me your friends and I'm going to show you your future. If a guy is surrounded by godly men, he will become more godly. If he's surrounded by godless men, then he's going to have a much difficult ascent on the path of virtue. And so I think we had talked about this last week when we talked about guys should pay attention to the friends of the prospective girlfriend that they're looking. If she's hanging out with a bunch of godless women, then Josiah, you pointed out, well, then it's going to be to those women that she goes to for relationship advice with you. And, when you're at odds in a relationship, Matt, Fred, and I, Crystal, Matt, and I did a show on Pints with Aquinas a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. That's going to air this Wednesday night. And one of the things that Matt said is that in a marriage relationship, you should, as the man, talk to a guy, if you've got issues with your wife, that is going to typically take your wife's side in an argument, instead of the guy who's just going to tell you whatever you want to hear. Find a guy who's got enough common sense to say there's probably two sides of the story and can give you some healthy pushback. And so if you want to hear that discussion, Crystal and I sat down with Matt Frad for 3.5 hours to discuss marriage and all the challenges that we've had in that and all the healing that we've discovered and the ups and the downs. So you can go to Pints with Aquinas and watch that show.
We have time for one more quick
Okay.
one. So I'll just give you
Let's see what
an
time we got.
underhander
Yep.
here.
3 minutes left.
We got time for one more quick one. I've heard priests are married to the church and nuns are married to Christ. Why are there marital themes in celibate vocations?
Okay. Well, because from the very dawn of creation, from the very beginnings of Scripture, the whole epic story of God and man is that God is pursuing us as a bridegroom pursues a bride. You read through the book of Hosea, and the God of the Old Testament is just saying, I want to espouse you to myself in faithfulness. And when Israel would turn away, it's seen as an act of spiritual adultery, that there's this God who loves them and wants to be one with them, not only in this life spiritually, but for all eternity. And so when we turn to these false gods, we're turning away from the divine bridegroom. And so the New Testament really picks up this theme. If you read the Scriptures, it's so unbelievably evident through the pages of the New Testament. When a man would propose to a woman at the time of Christ, you would do so under a chuppah, which is like this canopy. You would exchange a glass of wine. And if she accepted that, you would essentially leave gifts with her, and then you would take off and you would say, okay, I'm going to go prepare a place for us. And then the groom would leave and he'd say, I'm going to come back to you, but there's no set wedding date. And so he would head off to the house of his father. And at the house of the father, where there were many, many rooms, he would prepare a place to begin their marriage. And he didn't really know when the wedding was going to take place because the father was in charge of the whole construction project. And so only the father would know the day of the wedding. And so when Christ says, I don't even know the day, only the Father knows, it's this bridal imagery. And then when it was ready, the father would let the son know. And then meanwhile, back with the bride would be her bridesmaids, and there would be oil in their lamps because, hey, you don't know when the bridegroom is going to come back. And then they would blow a shofar, which is this ram's horn, to announce, perhaps even in the middle of the night, that the wedding feast is beginning and you better be ready. So that's why the book of Revelation is talking about, you need to be ready. You're wearing this baptismal garment, these white vestments. You're prepared for the coming of the bridegroom. And then he comes, there's the wedding feast, and she's prepared for that with a nuptial bath, just as we prepare ourselves with the sacrament of baptism before we come one flesh with Christ in the sacrament of the Eucharist. And then in the end, the divine bridegroom comes back, and then there's this eternal wedding banquet in heaven. And so you understand how the Jews looked at weddings and marriage, and you realize, wow, that's the whole theme of the New Testament, is the divine groom leaving the chamber of heaven, coming down to earth so that he can invite his bride to this wedding feast of all eternity. And so the priests and the nuns, instead of what a husband and wife does, of kind of try to live out this sign on earth in the husband-wife relationship, essentially what the nuns, essentially what the priests are doing in their celibacy is saying, yes, you husbands and wives, you are a sign of this eternal reality. It's almost like when you're 100 miles away from Disneyland. It says Disneyland, 100 miles ahead. It's a sign, but you're not quite at the reality. The priests and the nuns are past the sign, and they're at the reality of like, no, I am unreservedly giving myself up to my bridegroom, or the priest living an image of Christ's love for the church, marrying the church. And so they have passed the sign. They've entered into this reality of what we will all have, of this exclusive, permanent, life-giving, ecstatic, blissful union with the bridegroom, not only our souls, but our bodies in all eternity. And so they are a living witness. That's why it's so important that priests wear their clerics, that we call them father, that a religious sister wear her religious habit, not a lapel pin and a pair of sensible shoes. No, be a visible sign of the bride, a visible sign of the bridegroom. We need to see it, because you can't see a nun, you can't see a priest and not think about God when they're wearing those habits. It's not to undermine the gift that religious sisters are, should their order no longer wear the veil, the habit, but what a powerful sign it is when they do. And so this is why, they choose these vocations to bypass the sign, go to the eternal reality of what we can all hope to experience in union with God for all eternity in heaven. So hope that answers the question, but in the meantime, join us this Thursday. We're going to be on again live, 6 p.m. Pacific. Kristalina's going to be joining you with me, answering any of your questions. In the meantime, you can send them at live@chastity.com. Please also like, comment, subscribe to the channel, share. If you just cut and paste that little share, hit the button, cut, paste that little link, YouTube will actually show this video to more people. It will grow our channel. And so we can do our part by kind of creating this content, but you really help us. If you just smash the subscribe button, hit that stuff. It helps us to get these videos to more people so they can discover God's plan for their life. Love you guys. Be praying for you, and we'll see you on Thursday night.